On my screen, Ryan's still frozen, so we'll just start till he till he starts to move again. Well, welcome everybody. Chair Kamalo's in an Uber, and as soon as she gets into her hotel room, she'll be logging on and taking back over. But we do have a new commissioner here today that we want to welcome and introduce all of us to him. So John Quorum is here, and welcome, John. John and I have served together on the Sentencing Commission for at least 4 years, right, John?
Correct.
So anyway, so this will be great to be able to work with him in this capacity as well. So John, you want to give a little introduction about yourself, and then we'll have everybody go through and introduce themselves to you?
I'll do that. I'll keep it brief if we're going to do everyone. I am really excited to be a part of this commission. I'm really thrilled. And it's fun to see some familiar faces, especially faces that I've come to get to know really well. So I feel like I'm in great company. As mentioned, my name is John Quorum. I was a public defender for about 5 years, and then currently, as of last fall, I got into a bit of civil litigation, which is I won't, no commentary. No commentary. I do get to practice a little bit of criminal law still. I'm really passionate about this work. I'm really passionate about the public defense community and the rights that our fellow citizens should have access to. And so I'm grateful to be a part of this. I graduated from BYU years ago. I've taught criminal justice at UVU, probably like everybody else. I was the BYU trial ad coach for a couple of years until just recently. And I was at the Utah County Public Defender's Office. That's where I was a public defender. And so I know Margaret Lindsay. We weren't in the same department, but I got a lot of good guidance and and advice that I still apply to my work and my life. So anyway, that's me.
Thank you, John, and welcome. We're happy to have you here. Obviously, you know me, I'm Pam Vickery. I'm the juvenile delinquency representative for the IDC. I'm going to go by order on my screen. So I don't know what order you guys are in, but this is Pam's order, apparently. Katrina, you want to go next?
Hi, I'm Katrina Adair. I work for IDC as the current grant program manager. I took over from Greg last year, so this is kind of the first year still going to get through. So, and it's a pleasure to work with all of you.
Matt?
I'm Matt Barraza. I'm the executive director of the IDC. I would note that although Katrina is the current grant manager, she's also the current financial analyst as well, which is the position she had before. So she's doing double duty right now.
She's wearing a couple hats.
Well, big hats.
Casey?
I am Casey Hopes, Carbon County Commissioner, and I've only got you by one meeting, so we're both learning as we go.
Amber?
I am Amber Lichty. I am staff at IDC, and I am the training coordinator.
Margaret, who obviously you know, but Margaret, your turn.
Margaret Lindsay, Utah County Public Defenders, technically the child welfare representative. And when John says a lot of lessons, it's probably more like he looked at me and said, okay, that's what not to do. I have loved working with John, was happy for this new opportunity for him, but we were really sad to see him go.
Justice Zimmerman?
Yeah, Michael Zimmerman. I'm in appellate practice and I do arbitrations, and I used to be a judge.
Leslie?
Hi, I'm Leslie Howard. I'm the IDC's data analyst, and I've been here for over 3 years, so getting settled.
Ryan?
I'm Ryan Luce. I'm appointee of the Utah League and City Towns. I'm full-time South Jordan City attorney. And John, I think you worked with my wife's cousin, Lisa Blanchard, if you're down in that office. So.
Yes. I did. And I, not only did we work together, we were like friends. We're like this. So anyway.
Lisa's great. Although she likes to take, what, 8 months off to live in France, that sort of thing.
I'm still trying to figure out how to do that. She didn't tell me how I would do that.
Adam?
I'm Adam Troop. I'm the Assistant Director for the Indigent Defense Commission. Nice to have you here, John.
Okay, well, wonderful. And thanks again for everybody for being here in lovely, hot, sweltering July. Matt, we want to move on to the strategic planning.
Yes, thank you. And this will be good, I think, too, with a couple of new commissioners present who weren't part of the strategic planning process. So that'll help familiarize you with the outcomes of that plan. We put this on the agenda because the first half of the year, as you know, is just really consumed with the legislative session. And then as soon as that's over, we pivot right away to the grant cycle where we're processing grant applications and getting those ready for your review. And those were just approved in the beginning of June. And then we have to pivot and try and make it so that those funds can be allocated starting July 1st. So we now are almost at a place where we're catching our breath and we're reassessing. And so we are so glad to have this document that we all worked on so hard last year to be able to pivot to that, take a look and see, all right, what do we need to prioritize going forward? So let me start. I put, rather than reading from the strategic plan, I put together some slides. All right, everybody see that? Okay. So I want to revisit the
It's
main...
actually, sorry, Matt, it's showing your, the presenter view. Yeah.
Okay. Well, now I can't see my notes, so I'm flying blind here. All right. So it'll be a chance for us to revisit the goals that were identified in the plan. And then we want to prioritize the goals going forward in the near term. So over the next few months, what we want to focus on going forward. And I saw Senator Weiler pop on. See,
it's like seeing the gopher on Groundhog Day or whatever. So 6 more weeks of summer.
Well, welcome. It is good to have you here. And I'm going to take a liberty here and pause my presentation and just introduce you to a couple of our newer commissioners who I don't believe you've had a chance to meet yet. We have Commissioner Hopes, Casey Hopes out of Carbon County. He's a Carbon County Commissioner, so he's Commissioner ×2. And we have John Quam, who this is his first meeting here with us. He is the newly appointed representative from the Utah Minority Bar Association.
Welcome, both of you. Excellent.
So, and Senator Weiler needs no introduction, I think. I think pretty much if you live in the state of Utah, you know who he is. So.
You say that like it's a good thing.
I'll let people draw their own connotations on that. Yeah, we are grateful to have. I refer to him frequently as the godfather of the IDC.
Oh boy. Well, thanks, Matt. Thanks for that introduction.
And I mean that in the nicest way possible. He was really key to getting the IDC created and getting that legislation through, and he continues to be a incredible support for us as we navigate things on Capitol Hill. So we are again reviewing the strategic plan, and our purpose in doing this is to kind of reorient ourselves after the grants season has finished. So we want to revisit the goals, prioritize some goals to work on in the next several months, and then also reach out to commissioners for help on working groups if we identify any goals where that is a necessity. So I'm going to highlight a few of the goals that were outlined in the strategic plan. I'm leaving out a few that either we're already doing or are more statement of values than an actual goal that we're trying to accomplish. So one of the topics that we covered is the development of the Managing Defender program. And the goal there was to work towards helping the managing defenders have their caseloads drastically reduced to where they were having little or no actual caseload. And so the reason for that being so that they could spend more time actually engaging with the attorneys that they supervise and helping them develop as attorneys, making sure that they are providing the best possible representation for their clients, and to really just have that capacity to have that meaningful management. And so the measure of that goal as established in the strategic plan was that we as staff will measure the caseloads dichotomously, meaning that we're looking at comparing different managing defenders and keeping track of who has caseloads and who doesn't, tracking that data, as well as tracking the actual hours being spent by a managing defender at any given time. We do collect that data currently semi-annually through the system needs evaluation. Another important piece in that goal is to ensure that the attorney contracts and those systems that have contract attorneys doing the work, that there is a provision in their contracts that allows for, explicitly allows for the managing defender to have that supervisory role over the work that they're doing. And so we will be, as those contracts are being renewed from year to year, we'll be keeping an eye on that and making sure that those amendments are included as needed. Another important topic was the grant renewals. So in the strategic plan, we really felt it was important to have a firm commitment stated there publicly that when we are making these grant decisions, that those grants will be renewed from year to year. And that was based on feedback that we were receiving from our partners at the counties, saying that they had concerns that, you know, if they accept this grant funding and set up these contracts, that the IDC may choose the next year to pull that funding and put it someplace else. And so in order to have that consistency and to build that trust with our grant partners, it was really important for us to have that statement in the strategic plan that we would be renewing those grant decisions from year to year. Now, we did need to put some fine print in there just to ensure that those grants were doing actually what they were intended to do. And so one of the measures of this goal was to have the development of a monitoring system. So one of the caveats in the renewal is that the grants will be renewed from one year to the next unless there is a monitoring issue. And so one of the things we need to do is to define what constitutes a monitoring issue that would result in some grant funding being withdrawn or reallocated, and creating a process and some protocols for responding to a monitoring issue so that we can have that process in place and have that clear as to what a system would need to do in order to take remedial measures if there was a monitoring issue that was identified. Another factor or another piece of the resource allocation with our grants would be to create a working group to develop a resource distribution strategy. Over the years, our grant program has kind of grown where the need is, and there might be some imbalances there from one county to the next. One county might be receiving more grant funding than a neighboring county that's similarly situated, same size, same need there. And so one of the goals is to create a working group to develop a structure and a strategy to set goals for where we think that the grant funding should be allocated, generally speaking, amongst neighboring counties or different class of systems. And then also with the resource allocation, it was identified one of the goals was to develop a innovation grant or pilot program funding track, have a separate track where the counties could apply, systems could apply to have that designated funding to try new programs and develop and incubate innovations in the provision of defense services. Another identified goal was attorney compensation. Now this, because of recent legislation and developments throughout the state, has risen to the top of our list. As many of you know, this last legislative session, the Attorney General's office received a massive influx in funding to pay their attorneys, and that has led to a bit of a ripple effect throughout the state, especially in the Wasatch Front. The Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office, and then legal defenders and Utah Juvenile Defenders Association have been able to point to this and get some increase in funding from Salt Lake County to increase their compensation. So we're really glad that they were able to convince their county funders to match that funding. But then that leaves the rest of the state and a lot of the rural counties and contracts that we are funding with a big discrepancy between the compensation that many of the opposing counsel will be receiving right in the same courtroom. So Leslie has been working furiously on this over the summer, and she fortunately has the help of a graduate student who is working on this as well to come up with a plan that we can present to the legislature. Part of the difficulty, well, a major part of the difficulty in sorting this all out is, as you know, the majority of the attorneys especially in the rural counties, almost all of the attorneys providing public defense services are contract attorneys on flat fee yearly contracts. And so we're really in this comparing apples and oranges situation when we're trying to come up with a fair way to have them compensated for the work that they're doing when we're comparing the work that they do and their contracts to the full-time salaried attorneys in the Attorney General's office. So they're working on a way that makes sense and that is equitable that we can present to the legislature, and then also the managing defenders can present to their county funding decision makers in a way that makes sense, where we can address some of these inequities that are kind of historically always been there, but now have just been amplified by the recent changes with the Attorney General's office. The next goal identified in the strategic plan was to improve the quality of the representation, or to ensure quality representation being provided throughout the state. And the measure for that would be to develop an attorney checklist. And that is really a tool to not only help the attorneys know what the expectations are for the work that they're doing, and it will also be a tool that can help the managing defenders take a look and identify areas where the attorney could use some additional resources, some additional training, and have that conversation when they're doing their reviews of the work that they're doing. And so with the development of that checklist too, we agreed it would be important to have the managing defenders throughout the state involved in that process, because that will help them be able to tailor whatever checklist to the work that's being done in their area. And then also create a sense of buy-in and commitment for the and ownership for those checklists, so that when they are rolling those out to the attorneys that they supervise, that they are intimately familiar with some of the reasons why certain items might be on those checklists and why those are important. And then finally, the final objective from the strategic plan I wanted to highlight was education and training. One of the measures that was identified was to develop small regional in-person skill trainings for attorneys throughout the state. So that's just the broad overview of the strategic plan and the objectives that were identified there. And what I'd like to do now is to talk about, of those, what we as staff feel are the things that we need to be working on in the near term, and then also take some input from the commissioners and get your feedback as to whether that seems right, or whether there are other items in the strategic plan that the commission feels should have a more urgent or higher priority work for the staff to be working on now. Now, as I mentioned, the compensation issue has really risen to the surface, and that's something that is already underway. Leslie should be having that ready to be presented. Leslie, what timeline would you give on that? I don't want to misstate that. And
the report should be finalized by the end of August. So a lot of it depends on the timing of our next commission meeting.
So we expect to have that completed by the end of August. So that will be done very soon. With the attorney checklist project, when we initially had been thinking about this, and once the plan had been completed, we thought that would be more of a midterm project. However, we were approached by the NLADA this spring. That's the National Legal Aid and Defender Association. And that's a national organization, and they approached us because they had received a grant from the BJA, and part of that is a training and technical assistance grant. And so they wanted to partner with us to see what kind of projects we had that they could help us work on. And so the attorney checklist seemed like a great fit for that. And so because of the timing of that grant and them approaching us, this is something that we will be working on in the near future, in the coming months, working with managing defenders to develop those checklists, and also using that as an opportunity to really train the trainers, really train the managing defenders on what they need to be doing, what they need to be looking out for, and engaging with their attorneys to really have a meaningful supervising role, and then also really establishing that dynamic between them and the people that they're supervising. And then finally, the third item that us staff have identified as a priority in the near term is the Innovation and Pilot Project grant track. I've talked to a couple of commissioners about this, as it has been bouncing around in my head. And part of the motivation for putting this on the near-term project list is that with our non-lapsing funding that we go through every year, for me personally, I mean, there is a feeling that it could be a little bit more focused, directed, and meaningful with some of the funding that we're doing with those non-lapsing funds. I think that there are some particular challenges with it being such a compressed time that we have to get that funding out. And so we've gotten into a habit of having those go towards equipment purchases and laptops and the like. And I know that that was super important during the pandemic when everybody was shifting to remote work and video, WebEx and the like. But now that we are transitioning out of that pandemic situation, I want to take a look at ways that we can use those non-lapsing funds in a more thoughtful and productive way. And so I think that desire will pair well with the innovation grants, where we can work with our grant partners to kind of workshop some ideas as to what some good short-term pilot projects might be, work on those through the fall, so that when the non-lapsing funds become available, we already have a few projects that are really solidified, ready to go, shovel ready, as they say, and then those grants can be implemented as soon as that non-lapsing fund becomes available January 1st. And then if those are projects that we can look at and say have been successful, then we can turn around and look at more long-term funding for those. And I think that also with our grant program, part of that, the grants, we have been really focused on bringing up some of these systems that have been historically underfunded or have very high caseloads. And I think that is totally appropriate for where we've been. But I know that when we focus solely on the needs in that way, it may be that some of the larger or more established systems might not be getting as much attention as they might need. And so I think that the innovation programs might be a helpful way to really pivot our attention to some of the more developed systems to use their capacity that they have built over the years, to take a look and see, all right, what are some things that we can try and do creatively that might be able to be replicated throughout the state. So that is my spiel for the strategic plan. Those are the items that we have identified, but I want to turn it over to the commission for feedback, comments, or suggestions for the strategic plan goals going forward.
Great, thanks, Matt. Does anyone have any questions for Matt, or thoughts, input?
I'm curious as to what kind of long-term projects you're talking about with it seems like a good idea instead of just rushing the money out, but what kind of projects are you thinking about?
Well, and that's why I want to get a group together. So this would be a working group situation where I need some commissioners to participate on that, so that we can consider some of those projects. There are, we do have the benefit of having a lot of other states who have been having commissions similar to ours that have been around longer. And so I think we can look to them and see some of the things that they've done over the years to innovate and come up with creative solutions. But then also I think one of the benefits of having so many people on the commission who are actually doing the work, Pam and Margaret and Rich, is that they think about all of this in their own areas all the time. And so I think it would be great to get everybody together and brainstorm and come up with some ideas for these short-term projects.
I'm interrupting the strategic planning meeting to welcome Chair Kamalu, who has safely Ubered to her hotel. And I'm passing the baton back to you, Chair.
Wow, I was happy to have you keep it. Good job. But I safely Ubered, but to the wrong hotel. So then I walked to the right hotel. So there you go. It's a little warm here in Austin, Texas.
Nice and humid.
But, you know, a few steps is good, always. But yeah, I caught just the start of this, I think, Matt. So yeah, very interested in everybody's thoughts.
You know, I'm excited to finally like see something, some specific, you know, goals in a nice, organized way, Matt, and feel like now we can like truly take some steps to start implementing these priorities and really try and shape the next steps of the future of the IDC and the future of just indigent defense in the state. So I'm very excited about this.
Hey, Matt, I wanted to ask, during your presentation, you mentioned that, you know, some of the counties were concerned that we might, you know, fund them and then pull the funding. To your knowledge, in the history of the IDC, have we ever done that?
Yeah, I think the only time that came up was during the beginning of the pandemic, when there were some, you know, changes to the budget and then some restoration. So so I don't know of any actual, you know, renewal that has been pulled.
Okay.
But there,
Matt,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I was invited to speak to a group of county commissioners about a month ago, and the topic of the IDC came up, and one of the county commissioners, I'm trying to remember if it was like Paiute County or it was one of the rural counties, just said, hey, yeah, we talked to the IDC years ago, and they wanted us to increase the funding, and they could only help us with one-time money, and we weren't, you know, willing to do that and take the risk that the one-time money would go away. And I said, well, you should talk to them again, because then I explained that we would get increases some years, but it was one time, but usually the next year we could come back and either get the one time again or get that converted to ongoing funding. And that's been a constant struggle. For those of you that have been involved with the IDC, you know that, but I don't know, how many counties are there out there that we're not currently working with?
5 or 6, I believe. 6, is that right?
And
okay.
Senator Weiler, I remember that I was there at that Justice Summit that you
were there. You were
there.
there.
And there were others in addition to commissioners and council members in the room, but I do think it was Paiute. Yes. And I think maybe they just, you know, haven't really kept up with the evolution and your advice was really great. So yeah, it'd be great timing to reach out probably to Paiute and then, you know, all those others, of course. I know you always are encouraging and like to work with anybody who's, I know San Juan still hopes to, you know, get things going, and they really trust and like. In general, counties will, and especially some, especially rural, but others too, be suspicious of, you know, we're going to get some money and then how do we know it's never going to go away? In general, that is a thing. It's challenging.
So I think we should clarify, Matt, we want you to go to San Juan County, not San Juan, Puerto Rico. So
yeah,
I can do
no
both.
IDC finance vacations this year.
Senator, and Lorraine, that's really helpful, because we should be doing more and can be doing more outreach to some of the counties. There's very few who we've talked to recently who have no interest, and some of the others just haven't been in touch recently. So
okay.
I think it's a great point. And really the answer, Senator, is there have not been any contracts pulled or substantial money lost. And when it was because of extremely unusual situation, right? It's not just the legislature didn't fund it. It was a dramatic cutback in funding generally. So, yeah, we feel confident we can encourage them on that, but I think Commissioner Kamalu's got a very good point. There's always uncertainty anyway, and it goes way beyond just the IDC funding, right?
I told that whole group about the strategic plan and about that adoption of kind of a commitment. Of course, this means we still, it's always dependent on the state funding to continue keeping this promise, but I told them that it's now part of the strategic plan. Not all counties were in attendance at that Justice Summit. And then the other thing is that there's been a pretty good turnover in this last time of elections. There are, former commissioners who are no longer and new ones who have come in. Even Duchesne has had turnover, right? And I know they were with us and then not with us, and it'd probably be a really good time to reach out to, all of those, including Duchesne as well.
One update I wanted to give, this is slightly off topic, but there is, Grand County did come back into the grant program, and they have hired a managing defender there who Adam and I met with a couple days ago. Some of you I know her, Christine Rogers, and she is going into that arena with some really great experience and a lot of good ideas. And we met with her and told her all the ways that we want to support her and make any changes that need to be made there stick and support her in any way that we could. And I think that she really, she's someone who I think can really help to reach out to San Juan and some of the other counties in the southeast there to bring them on board as well.
I think Michael Zimmerman, you had a hand up. Sorry, you had to wait a sec.
No, I was just going to comment that Paiute County's never been interested, no matter what. So I think it has to do with the county attorney, maybe the sheriff, but I think it's the county attorney is the heavyweight in the room there.
And I learned how interesting that is. And the honest truth is that elected commissioners and council members, I don't know of one who's an attorney by background, right? This is not an area that we come into usually with any experience in the criminal justice system. And we're not attorneys. And so we utilize our subject matter experts, and those, whoever is their, attorney in their county has a lot of influence, I will just say. And we saw that in
particularly a little county like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for the input and the feedback, and we will get started on. Well, we are started. We will continue with these projects that we have underway, and we'll keep you updated. And I'll send out a follow-up email too about the pilot project working group to see who would like to participate on that.
And one more thing. This was really great attendance today, but Commissioner Hopes, who's one of our newer commissioners, he's very well respected, and he is from rural Utah, and so I think it'll be just so great that he's eager and will be someone who can also speak to this for rurals. I don't think they discount maybe what an urban commissioner shares, but on the other hand, when they hear from their fellow rural counties and commissioners, in fact, it'd probably be amazing for more rural counties and commissioners to speak up about their experience and how it has helped. And then when they speak up, it sometimes gets some extra confidence from their peers.
Yeah, and I was going to say, when I spoke to this group, I think it was in late May, I mentioned that, in the history of Utah, we've never had in rural Utah, a public official run for elected office and say, if elected, I'm going to give more money to make sure that, you know, our defense attorneys, our public defenders are properly paid. That doesn't happen. And so there is a learning curve that, you know, has to take place. And I don't know if I would have, you know, over the last 30 or 40 years, you know, if a county like Paiute, if they have a couple extra dollars to spend, if they're going to spend that on roads and stuff that, you know, they can see a direct measurable benefit, or if they're going to spend it on something like IDC, I think they're going to choose roads, you know, 99 out of 100 times. And that's what we're up against. But I do like the suggestion, you know, and no offense to you, Matt and Adam, but, you know, if you could involve some of the other elected officials like Lorraine or members of this commission, including me, you know, in those conversations with those elected officials, you know, we might be able to maybe turn some hearts. So, you know, just a thought from me.
Well, we're always happy to have as many people in this conversation as well. So yeah, that's we would welcome the assistance with that, truly.
All right, thanks.
All right, well, that's it for me on this topic.
Oh, thanks. I didn't pull up the agenda yet. I saw it earlier. What is next? Just go ahead and tell me.
Adam was going to give us an update on the IPR program, the parental defense social worker.
Yes,
project.
there it is. That'll be great. Go ahead, Adam. Thank you.
Thank you. There are actually quite a few things that have been going on since we've talked about this last, and it's a pretty exciting process. You'll recall that a couple of years ago, actually in 2022, the program was created by statute, and there was $170,000 put into it, which allowed us to hire 2 social workers to be part of what we're calling the interdisciplinary parental representation pilot program. We were able to pull some more money from both unspent funds, non-lapsing funds, and from some Title IV federal reimbursement money that we'd received. So we could hire another person, and we managed to do that at the beginning of this year. Somebody's in place now in Davis County. So we have 3 under that pilot program, but we've also had a number of people doing this for quite a few years. And I'm not even quite certain, Margaret, when we started, but under the direction of Utah County Public Defenders, there have been 2 other workers who were working in outlying rural counties and also in Utah County on cases. So when we add it all up, we actually have a pretty significant number and a pretty long history of this work, of this type of work and this type of program. Margaret and her office have agreed to pull the workers who were not officially funded by the pilot program into this. And so it ends up giving us actually 6 people now doing this work. Is that correct? I think I had it correct. Well, we haven't one. We had give us a number of people who are actually in this program already. We also did with this grant cycle fund an additional person who is going to the the Cache Box Elder Rich regional system. And we have gotten good news out of that. We just started the funding in July, obviously, for this round. And Mike McGinnis up there is actually able to have somebody start on the first week of August. So he moved quickly, and it was pretty good. We were able to give him support and some guidance on what the process was, who should be considered for these positions, and also job description. So he's on board real quick, which is always good because it means we're not letting money sit on the table, we're spending it quickly. So it's moving forward. And there are also 3 of these workers in Salt Lake County working with Lockett and Associates and the conflict attorneys. They are not actually part of this pilot program. Pilot program is defined by statute, so we do have that distinction really of we have one set of procedures, one set of people that we're going to measure and track and then report on to the legislature. But the other 3 won't be pulled in, and their cases are going to be separate. which is fine, because what we've done with the pilot program is to develop a set of parameters for practice and practice standards for the workers. We've developed some expectations for the attorneys who are part of these teams. And we have developed policies that are going to guide how we process cases for one aspect, and also how we're going to decide on eliminating cases or closing out cases that have had an IPR team. And what it's really aimed at is giving us a structure that we can call a program, not simply workers working with attorneys and child welfare cases, but really a program that meets a definition that we can recreate, we can spread around other places of the state, and we can explain to the legislature and others what it really looks like, what the parameters are, what the expectations are. So that's underway. We've got a handbook for workers. We're continuing to develop our policies. We have semi-monthly meetings with the workers who are assigned and the managing defenders who are working with them. And we talk about whether we need policies, how practice is going, problems they're running into, needs they identify, and anything we really can just come up with also as far as somewhat random things that people are experiencing, because practice is not the same across all courtrooms or even across all districts. That's given us a lot of guidance on how we continue to build the project, on who we need to talk with, to collaborate with in the child welfare system, so we can keep moving forward and we can have good collaboration as we try to build this. And also, as I said, some of those specific problems that people are running into. One of them is that sometimes the system folks or the Division of Child and Family Services or other attorneys are not quite sure how to look at and how to see the social worker in this role. We keep taking the point of view that they are part of the legal team and they're entitled to go anywhere the lawyer is. And as a representative of that legal team, we have not run into a lot of problems, but it's an interesting opportunity to make sure we connect with people, let people know what's going on with the system, and then make those contacts locally that I would not necessarily have if I didn't have some reason and concern that was raised by people. So that's part of the summary. The other part that we are carrying forward is collection and reporting of data. And with Leslie's help and actually guidance from a couple of other systems around the country, mainly Colorado and Washington, who we focused our development on quite a bit, we have defined what we want to collect in terms of data, case information, and have created that as a form that workers can fill out and that we can collect quarterly. We are focusing a lot on the activities that the workers are doing, and primarily really on the direct contact the workers have with clients. One of the main reasons for this kind of program is to increase client engagement, right? To help them feel like they have more support than they do with simply having a lawyer through the legal process, but that they have support that they can turn to, rely on for resources, and also just feel as though they're being heard. And because of that concept of a purpose, or that purpose, the number of contacts, the frequency of contacts, the places that the workers have contacts with the client is really pretty crucial. And the nature of the resources that the worker puts the client in touch with is also crucial. And so we asked them to record types of events they're going to, types of contacts they have, what those issues are that they identify for the client that may not come out just through the court process, or may not be clear even to the Child and Family Services worker, but that somebody on the defense side really can help the worker. It can help the attorney identify, and that can share with the court. We're finding quite a bit of that, and we're finding quite a bit of positive engagement with the clients. There's already very positive stories coming back about people just feeling helped and supported and more involved in the decision making for what they're doing. And that's gratifying. It's one of the reasons that the meetings every other week are gratifying for everybody. We get to hear stories of what people are seeing and what positive responses they're getting, et cetera. So it encourages everybody to move forward and to learn from each other too. So let me stop there, Leslie. I don't know if you want to add anything about what we're trying to collect and go from there, but I will wrap up in a minute unless anybody's questions about anything in particular. Okay. I told you we have data collection tool, but right now it is not focused on long-term outcomes. Long-term outcomes in child welfare cases can last about 2 years. And as a result of that, we're not to that point in most of the cases we're working on. So what we're doing about long-term outcomes is identifying what we do believe is important, what should be positive outcomes that we expect, right? A higher level of return home, fewer kids, fewer parents feeling like the system just rolled over them, but feeling more like they had involvement. Those are longer term discussions, longer term evaluations. A number of states around the country have these programs. A lot of them have done research, shown the outcomes over time, and they're pretty consistently showing that kids either return home quicker or a case ends quicker because there's agreement to it, as opposed to fighting it out for a long time when the parent's willing to relinquish. Those are positive outcomes in terms of saving money, but they're also positive outcomes in terms of what we, on behalf of parents, are trying to achieve. So we will look to those issues and to those outcomes, but as we report to the legislature, as we continue to take a look at what we are achieving, we're going to turn back to a lot of those studies and demonstrate what's happened over the last multiple years. The program in New York actually started about 20 years ago. And in Colorado, they've had theirs going for quite a while too. So their research can show quite a bit of positive outcome and a lot of good results in a lot of ways, just primarily in helping parents feel like they're involved, and really in a lot of ways from what we're seeing already is just feel as though they're treated decently by the system and that they're respected enough instead of feeling like they're just being crushed, which happens somewhat frequently. So that's what we will do. We'll work on our presentation to the legislature that we have to do by September 30th by presenting both information on how many cases workers are having, what kind of context they're having, what they're doing in day-to-day work, but also bringing some stories to the legislature about what we're seeing in cases, what the workers are experiencing as they work closely with the lawyers on these cases. And then what kind of outcomes we've seen just in the short period of time we've had. There are, even just in the last few months of working with these 3 workers who started out, there's such positive stories about people having that extra point of contact on their behalf that they can go to, somebody they can reach out to for help or support or information that they need to have. And in reality, frequently, there's not a feeling of support from or real comfort with the social workers who are assigned to their cases from DCFS. There's a pretty significant tension in that relationship frequently. So having a worker who knows the system and can reach out or be a contact is already shown to be pretty darn useful and helpful to people, as Leslie and I've heard over the last few months. Margaret's been doing this for quite a while, I know, and Margaret, if you want to add anything about what you've seen, that's great. I'm just really happy with the way it's going. It's nice to see that it's growing and able to continue to grow. But I look forward to bringing back more examples of where we're actually seeing some positive outcomes for people. Margaret, you unmuted.
I think I am unmuted now. Yeah. I think one of my big takeaways from this whole experience I think it's been about 4 years now of working with, the initial and now my 2 workers is they are so much more skilled at communicating with clients and helping them navigate the DCFS, the administrative system, and developing communication and problem solving than the lawyers are. They just can accomplish so much by understanding that world and understanding a lot, many of the mental health and other challenges, that parents and families face than simply the lawyers are, who are are skilled at the legal language, but we're not always as skilled with the other thing. Although I would say that my attorneys and myself have learned a great deal too from our workers about how to do our jobs better on these DCFS cases. And another thing that I've noticed is the cases that our social workers on, we have a much greater understanding of the broader family dynamics. And, you know, where the support systems structures exist, where they don't exist, and where we can, you know, utilize and strengthen those dynamics in the assistance of whether it's a kinship placement or, you know, third party supervised visits, all that information, which is so critically important under our statutes and for the children and families as a whole. So I'm thrilled with what we're doing, and the data is, it's inclusive, and it's I think it's going to give us a much better understanding of the difference that these social workers are making.
Yeah, I will add this too, that I've picked up from the last couple of months. One of the additional pieces that may come out of this, or really is a potential for this, is to encourage or even push the attorneys doing the work to be more aggressive in their advocacy. And for those of you who know, juvenile court, child welfare is supposed to be a problem-solving court. People work in teams, they're asked to get along and resolve problems. That can also create some complacency. And I've heard that from managing defenders around the state about the attorneys they're working with. And that is the idea that, hey, this is fine, we're supposed to go along. We want to get along with this, and we'll come back and solve the problem or deal with litigation later. The more you know about a family situation, like Margaret said, or the more that you know about the needs of a client because you've spent the additional time with them, and it's not just based on DCFS, the more you really can do to advocate and to push hard on that system to either provide more benefits to the client or to challenge the court and the division on actually being put to their proof. And we're seeing workers come up with ideas for the attorneys or come up with resource suggestions that really do allow them to push a little bit more and to sort of watch what they're doing and ask the question about, why don't we file this motion? Why don't we recommend this to the court or ask for it for DCFS? And if that takes place, it's great. It is to a certain extent what we want out of a managing defender, but managing defenders can't be there on all the cases either. So I'm hoping that builds, and I think from some of the managing defenders we've been involved with, they're seeing that same idea too.
That's so great. Wow, it's wonderful to hear you and Margaret talk about this. Looks like Michael Zimmerman has his hand up.
A question, Adam and Mark, is this, do you think there's a chance this is going to be quantifiable some way? Because I've heard some question about, you know, should money be going here or going to lawyers? And, you know, lawyers like to probably advocate for the money for themselves. And do you think we're going to be able to get some kind of measurement that can show these qualitative changes?
So there's a two-part answer to that, I would say. Yes, based on what's come from other systems around the country, if what we're looking at is really individual outcomes or outcomes in individual cases aggregated. So did the social worker, as part of an IPR team, help to get a child home more quickly, or to get a better outcome of a child returning home, or to kin, et cetera? Yes, those studies are showing that happens in almost every area. Shorter time to reunification, higher rates of reunification, money saved. However, the second part of that question is, if there were more attorneys doing the work and they had lower caseloads and more time to do it, how do we distinguish between those two things? Honestly, I don't know where or if those kinds of studies have been done. So I'm tying my belief to my belief in the project and the idea that social workers help in this environment. But as far as putting more money into lawyers, either in other court types or juvenile court, I haven't seen that come out. I haven't seen that somewhere, and I can look at it. So yes, we can quantify positive outcomes. I don't know if somewhere else that's happened, but Leslie has something to say, obviously.
I do. I mean, social workers, this is brought up pretty frequently in a bunch of areas nowadays, but social workers are a monetarily effective way to do this, because on the whole, a social worker costs less than an attorney. And they're frequently doing jobs that, as Margaret said, attorneys aren't trained in. And so they're frequently doing a lot of the work that attorneys don't want to be on the phone with a client's mother all day, right? And these social workers, that is what they do and what they're great at. And so it's I think really easy for us to argue that it is parceling out the work in the most efficient way, monetarily, time-wise, skills-wise. And so even if there aren't outcome improvements seen, which there are, as Adam said, there have been a bunch of studies done in other places with really good research designs that show great outcomes. But even without that, you're paying the right person the right amount of money to do the work versus overloading attorneys.
Thank you.
Good points. Matt, did you want to say something too?
I was just going to second what some other people have said. I mean, I think that any attorney who has worked closely with a social worker knows the value of having that person as part of their team. And, if there's any doubt as to that value, I'm sure we could line up a room full of attorneys in support of increasing the amount of social workers available to do that work.
Yeah, Adam.
Sorry.
Adam, I'm sure you are already doing this, but I know with that new one pretty recently put in place in Davis County, like immediately Todd was telling me things that were so incredibly helpful. And so, yeah. And, he does great work and manages a good team of attorneys, but like it just really made a difference.
It's true. I mean, I spent, 18 years in a juvenile courtroom, 30 hours a week. And, in court, and I don't know, 5, 6, 7, sometimes team meetings and et cetera a week. And, trying to wear both hats. But the difference now in terms of having that resource, I would love nothing more than to have a social worker in every court. And social worker for, adequate for every conflict, team to spread around, because they completely change the dynamics, and really, as much as anything, they make the attorneys better. They make DCFS and the system, including the guardian ad litems, be better. And they certainly give our clients, the best opportunity, I believe, to truly have the chance to succeed. Now, you can determine success in any number of ways in the child welfare system, but as far as true fundamental fairness and an even playing field in this, big intimidating system that parents walk into, it's unmatched. There's nothing. That's the best thing we can do to change everything about that system, in my opinion.
Pretty good, strong statement.
I was going to clarify
to me, but
I was going to clarify that when Commissioner Kamalu said that he got immediate feedback from Todd, she wasn't talking about me. She was talking about Todd Hutzinger and Davis County.
That is correct, but you are good too, Senator Weiler.
Thanks.
Hey, can I make this additional comment too? I love this program, and it feels good whenever we talk about it and get together to talk about it. But one of the things that's been really interesting is that every one of the workers who comes on and has been in this program has worked for DCFS for a long time. Some of them have decades or a decade or more of experience, and they absolutely love what they're doing now. specifically because they can work for the client and they can push on the system to do something for the client, and they can focus on trying to reunify and solve problems. And that has been so rewarding for every one of them. I don't think any of them will leave anytime soon. So it's exciting to see that, because it's clearly from those people who have had experience in this field are feeling really positive about what they're doing. So
That's a good
nothing
point.
else can help some people.
Yeah, it's a really good point that it's meaningful work, right? And a lot of us didn't go into social work, but the people who do that, it seems like, you know, so many of them are well equipped, and it's very meaningful work for them. Yeah.
Thank you for the time on this. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Adam. Sounds like, I mean, we had a lot of comments. Any other last thing for that section? Yeah, great sharing. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so in the agenda, this is now just the last item for today. Other business and public comment. Doesn't look like we have any member of the public to comment. Okay. Also the next meeting, someone want to pipe up with that date?
Yeah, I was actually wanted to address that. So our regularly scheduled meeting would be for August 17th, I believe. However, I'm going to be out of town. I think Leslie's going to be occupied as well. And so also we wanted to be able to present on the compensation study as soon as that is completed, which would be around the end of August. So I'm wondering if we can kind of merge August and September and maybe have a meeting towards the beginning of September.
I'm okay with that. Maybe you can send out a couple of dates and just make sure. It seems like this time frame, this Thursday at this time tends to be generally pretty good for folks. And we haven't had too many problems when we've needed to switch which week it is, you know, but just to put it out. And
We'll send out a dreaded doodle poll with a couple of dates and see what kind of response we get, but we'll keep it, we'll just have a couple options there so it's not overwhelming.
That sounds really good. And since I missed the beginning, yeah, in fact, I have well, maybe I was looking at the wrong date, but anyway, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. No one ever complains too much when we decrease our numbers of meetings. But I just wanted to say, since I missed the beginning, that our new commissioner, John Quorum, did I say that right again, John? I hope I did.
Perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not that hard. It's easier than Kamalu, if you just know what letters are supposed to do. But yeah, I got to meet John when Matt got us together so that we could meet him kind of as he was going through that process to be confirmed. And just so excited for John to be part of this group. So I hope he got to say a few things in the beginning. Did you, John? Okay. Yeah. I mean, I literally wrote a note on you in my contact. I went back to it. Fantastic defense attorney who's going through the process to become a commissioner with the state for individuals. Like, I probably didn't ever plan to read that, but I also wrote that you are thoughtful and intelligent. And so we're just so excited that you've been able to get started with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think that makes it a meeting. Yes?
One more thing I just wanted to update the commission on. We have had a few staffing updates and hopefully we can get these new folks in at the next commission meeting to introduce themselves. But with some of the increase in appropriations that we received this last session, we were able to hire an attorney full-time to work on post-conviction cases. His name's Ian Queel. And then we also were able to hire an additional child welfare appellate attorney. His name is Dylan. Can't remember his last name. His name is Dylan. I'm sorry, no, Jason. I'm confusing. His name is Jason Richards. So he's well known amongst the parental defense community. And then we have hired an additional criminal appeals attorney. His name is Dylan. And then also we have filled the financial analyst position with a young man named Joshua. He starts in exactly 12 days. I know that that Katrina and I are counting down the days for him to start so he can get up to speed, but we're really excited to have him join the team, and we'll try and have these new folks introduce themselves officially at our next commission hearing.
That'll be great. That's a good update. Anything else by any commissioner or staff that needs to happen before we adjourn? All right, well, we have good meetings. Thank you everyone so much. Thanks for being on this meeting in July, mid-July. Biggest attendance of the year. Look at that. It's probably because Pam Vickery was gonna chair today. Good job, Pam.
I'm a very good chair. 'Cause I know what's going on. I'm like, sure, that sounds good. Let's do it.
You and Ryan are both my go-tos. Good job.
Well, one other bit of news, Commissioner Zimmerman was elected to be the chair of CCJJ. So we got lots of chairing going on.
Wow, yeah, that's great. Congratulations, Commissioner Zimmerman. Yeah, fantastic.
Should be interesting.
Yes.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. I'm so glad you were there. Good job.
I heard.
Nice. Well, it's a group that regularly gets recognized and stays very involved. So thanks to all of you for caring so much and working on all the things you can. I guess I'll take a motion to adjourn then at 4:17.
So move.
Okay. That does it. Very good. Thank you all. Have a great rest of your day.